Body modification. It's been around for centuries. However, over the last 50 years, we've seen an increase in popularity in a particular type, the ever taboo tattoo. Chances are you yourself or someone you know has at least one. In the year 2000, it was estimated that 15% of the American population had at least one. Then, just 8 years later, that number increased to 36% of Americans ages 25 to 29 having one or more. With this ever-growing popularity, more and more Americans are getting tattooed without doing the proper research. Here's a helpful tip. Good tattoos aren't cheap. Cheap tattoos aren't good. Take it from me. With over 30% of my body being covered in ink, I have my fair share of good tattoos and cheap tattoos, and I promise not a single one falls under both of those categories. Today we'll be discussing a few things. Who's getting tattooed and, well, why? Then, the difference between a good tattoo and a bad tattoo and how to avoid the latter. Finally, we'll be covering some statistics on tattoo regret. If you're thinking about getting a tattoo or your friend's thinking about getting a tattoo, why don't you listen carefully to these statistics? It might make you think twice before you let your friend of a friend hook you up with some ink. In this graph, we can see who's getting tattooed in America being broken down in a couple of different age demographics. From this diagram, we can see that the tattoo industry has absolutely exploded, nearly doubling in the last 20 years. 45 million Americans are getting tattooed each year. Of that 45 million, 58% of them are women, whereas the man only makes up 41% of that total. Why are all of these people getting tattoos? Well, most would probably tell you it's just because. However, sometimes it's to commemorate a lost loved one, gang-related, or to cover up an old scar. Whatever your reasoning for getting a tattoo, it's important to do your research before you get it. Not just on what you're getting, but who is doing it. This brings me to my next topic. How to tell the difference between a good and bad tattoo and how to avoid the latter. This breaks down some thoughts about people's tattoos, but I want to focus on the top where it talks about the pricing. This is important. One of the biggest differences between a good and bad tattoo is the amount of money spent and the choice of artists to do it. The tattoo industry earns about $1.6 billion per year. That's a lot of money. However, 1/3 of the people choosing to get a tattoo aren't spending enough money. Why do I say that, you ask? Well, 1/3 of the people who choose to get a tattoo choose to get it in someone's home or in prison. This is obviously not a good idea for a number of reasons. It can be unsanitary and then just shoddy workmanship and, well, it could cost you more money in the long run. The average tattoo should cost you about $45 for a small piece and $150 per hour for a larger piece. It really just depends on the artist. The more reputable, the more expensive, but the better quality work that comes with it. Here are some good examples of people who spent the right amount of money and chose the right artist to do their work. This kind of work costs some serious cash and takes some serious time. If you aren't willing to put in the time and effort to research a reputable artist or to commit that much money to getting your tattoo, I would hold off before you get one. If not, you run the risk of getting something like this. This is what you risk when you choose someone's living room over a professional studio. Not only does it look bad, but it's going to cost you some serious cash to fix. Which brings me to my final point. Should you decide against better advice to get one of those garage tats because you didn't want to spend more than $50 on a tattoo? You're in luck. According to newlasercollege.com, between 17 and 50% of all Americans will be right next to you on that boat of shame and regret. Here's a diagram that helps you see about what age you'll start regretting your decisions. Not that it's an exact science, it's just a guesstimate. Statistically, thousands of people regret their tattoo. In fact, 11% decide to get the tattoo removed, and another 5% decide to try their luck again and get a tattoo covered. According to creditdonkey.com, in 2013, 45,000 people chose to get a tattoo removed. That's an increase of 5,000 people since 2011. Now, since tattoo has increased in popularity over the last 5 years, we can only assume that the number of removals has increased as well. You might have heard me mention a few times over the speech that getting a bad tattoo will cost you, not just your reputation, but also your wallet. That seems kind of contradictory since my main point has been good tattoos tend to cost more. Well, here's the kicker. Should you need a tattoo removed, it's going to cost you twice what a good tattoo would have cost you because tattoo removal costs $250 per hour regardless of size. That's some serious cash. Tattoos have obviously increased in popularity. That much we can deduct from the statistics shown today. And in an effort to jump on this little bandwagon, people are cutting some pretty crucial corners and it is backfiring. If you are that determined to hop on this trend, do your research. Be willing to put in the appropriate amount of time and money, and under no circumstances should you go with that friend of a friend who can hook you up. What you don't spend on the initial tattoo, you'll probably be spending on a cover-up or a removal procedure. So you should definitely keep in mind, good tattoos aren't cheap. Cheap tattoos aren't good. My name is Savannah Lambert, and thanks for joining me.